first bit today, man, this is a story where I was like, do I even want to talk about this? And the answer is no, I don't want to talk about this. However, maybe we should talk about it. Maybe it's the responsible thing. Even if I'm not sure that it's totally legit here, maybe it's best to talk about it because I'm sure you guys are curious, okay? So, this all has to do with the Russo Brothers. It has to do with Kevin Feige, Secret Wars, Avengers Doomsday. And this story sort of first popped up on Friday via My Time to Shine Hello. And I was traveling, right? But I think I saw her tweeting about it, and I made like a snide comment because I kind of don't believe it. But she basically said something to the effect of, I'm hearing that Kevin Feige is really concerned about these next two movies, especially after the Electric State. And so he's keeping an extra close watch on these guys now, you know? They're on a tight leash now, the Russos, you know? And so, yeah, when I heard that, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I believe it. But it was corroborated by Daniel RPK, and technically we can't prove that they're both the same person. So let's just say that two insiders now have come forward to say this, okay? So here's the report here. Kevin Feige is reportedly concerned about the Russos directing the upcoming Avengers movies following the Electric State. I almost can't even say this with a straight face, but here we go. He plans to closely oversee the project, ensuring the script is just right and everything stays on track. Okay, so that's the report. Now, let me just say a couple of things here. Let's start with, do I think Kevin Feige saw Electric State and was like, God damn it, you know? I don't know, man. I mean, look, I didn't watch Electric State, okay? And part of the reason I didn't watch Electric State is because I didn't want to have this existential crisis that everybody's going through right now, okay? And the truth is, I had this crisis a long time ago. I mean, we were talking about the Russo brothers directing Secret Wars for a long, long time. Years, in fact. And, you know, there were rumors around the time that Black Widow was releasing, and I remember there was the lawsuit with Scarlett Johansson. Big article came out in Wired magazine, which has since been destroyed and scrubbed from the internet. But there was an article that came out in Wired magazine where the Russo brothers were essentially, I don't know if they leaked it or if somebody got a hold of it, but essentially they were concerned, and their deal with Marvel for Secret Wars was in jeopardy. And I remember that story very well because I did like an emergency stream. And I kind of said at that point, Disney should do whatever they have to because I don't want to lose the Russo brothers doing Secret Wars. The point is, we knew about the Russo brothers doing Secret Wars years ago. And years ago, the Russo brothers did movies outside of Marvel. So I remember watching The Gray Man, Extraction 1, some of these other things they were involved with. And basically what I'm telling you is I already went through this whole cycle of grieving. Okay, I already saw the work of the Russo brothers outside of Marvel, and I already had my feelings about it. You know what I mean? Like, so I've already been through this whole thing. I don't understand why it's happening again. I mean, I guess it's because of the Electric State, right? The point is, I don't know that this is anything new for a lot of us that are hardcore in the space, that follow this stuff pretty closely. I mean, the Russos have been making stuff outside of the Marvel Universe since they left the Marvel Universe. And the track record of that stuff has been pretty bad. That was apparent before Electric State. Electric State does nothing to change the narrative, right? And it reinforces the narrative. But that narrative was there. Even before this Electric State movie ever was a thing, the question was there as to, have the Russo brothers lost their touch because their work outside of Marvel not so great? But the obvious other side of this conversation is, yeah, but Marvel not so great. Marvel definitely not actually working well. And so, look, sometimes it is just the case that certain people work really well together. They sort of cover up each other's weaknesses. And I think when it comes to Kevin Feige, Marvel Studios, and the Russo brothers, it's pretty obvious that that's at least part of what was happening. they covered each other's weaknesses. Like the Russos, and I've seen a lot of people speculate about this. I don't know. Have you guys been watching videos or reading articles about this? Because again, this popped off over the weekend, but even before that, it was a part of the conversation, right? So I'd be interested to know if you've been going down this rabbit hole, right? But I've seen some people speculate and break down what they think is happening with the Russos and some of their movies. And I had this I forget who said it, but it was a really interesting point where it was like, they are not great at creating characterizations that are useful, meaning like a lot of their stuff, just the characters are very flat. But with Marvel and with these very established archetypes and like really, it's almost like the way they were able to do Community, right? Was that these characters were super well defined in any ensemble show, and that's what Community was. Any ensemble show really lives and breathes off of the dynamics between interesting and well-defined characters. Do you think about your favorite sitcom? Well-defined characters. You know what I mean? That's how that conflict happens, and that's what drives the interest. So it's almost like the Russos work well when there are established characters, very well-defined, and then they can find really interesting ways to pull out the very human like notes and the story beats from these characters. I've heard that interpretation from some people. I personally like that interpretation. It makes sense to me. But at the end of the day, like, look, should we perhaps be worried? I mean, I'm going to say, of course, right? Now, I'm not, I find myself optimistic. I'm on the optimistic side of this, right? But I would never tell somebody that's currently worried right now about everything that they're crazy. Of course they should be worried. Have you been seeing how Marvel Studios is performing? Have you been seeing how Disney's performing? You know, just real quick, we don't talk about really Disney movies. I don't really give a shit. But of course, the Snow White thing and it, you know, really underperforming is massive. Here's the thing that I think is wild about Disney, though. They technically have 2 bombs in a row that are also the 2 highest gross openings for Hollywood this year, right? So it's like so wild because they're clearly not doing well, and yet they're still doing better than everybody else over there. It's a wild situation in Hollywood, right? So there are all sorts of reasons to worry about these next 2 movies. And sure, maybe the Russo brothers are an element of that, considering this question of like, do they still have it? Have they lost their touch because of all these other movies? Totally appropriate. But I personally think there's way more shit to worry about. And so I find this idea that, personally, for me, guys, I find this idea that Kevin, in a sea of all the issues he knows damn well they are dealing with, all the ways this could go wrong, and just the pure ambition and scale of what they're trying to pull off, I find it crazy that with all of those problems, he watches Electric State, and then now that's the thing that's going to get him so worried that he's going to, like, look over their shoulders and shit. No, that's ridiculous. Of course he was always going to be doing that, and damn well that he should be, because these movies are the most important movies for the Marvel Cinematic Universe ever. Bro, if these movies do not perform like gangbusters, it's like proof positive that the brand is like steadily just in a completely different stratosphere than, and not a good one as compared to what it used to be, right? So I just personally find this idea that they watched Electric State and now that's what has them so worried. Hell nah, bro. Kevin should have been, and I think was, incredibly worried about multiple aspects of these movies. These are the big deal. This is like their Super Bowl. This is their chance to really turn things around. So I personally think this story is a little silly. It's one of those stories where, like, how could you even disprove it, right? And you'll notice that some of the scoopers, they will occasionally like ripcord some of those kind of stories where it's like, I mean, I guess sure, we'd never be able to know if you were lying, but all right. And so I personally think this is one of those stories. However, I know it's also on a lot of people's minds because of the situation. So maybe even if it's bullshit, it's worth addressing and talking about. So that's kind of my take on this situation. And ultimately, like, we're going to find out. It's either the case that they just work better together and maybe they should just stick to Marvel shit for a while, right? And if that is the case, it's good for everybody, because the rumors are that they're going to be helping a lot with this next phase of stuff, but also they're setting up the mutant stuff, and they're going to help with the X-Men saga as well. So I think we're going to find out, and of course, a lot hangs in the balance. Thanks for watching, and if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way, more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.